Hello and welcome to Trinity Online for January the 1st, 2023. It is the second Sunday of Christmas. Our narrative lectionary takes us into the Gospel of Matthew, the first chapter. An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abram. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez, and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon. We'll continue on, Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, bad news there, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah. You can read if you wish, but let's save some time. Mathan the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Joseph, Joseph the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, from David to the deportation to Babylon 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah 14 generations. Sorry to kind of cut that tight there, but in a way, it's a little bit better just to kind of look at it and read it yourself, and to recognize that, while we have a very renewed interest through Ancestry.com and 23andMe and all of that of genealogies, genealogy within the Jewish understanding of things was also a real strong way not just of finding out where you came from, but of finding out who you are. Their understanding was that all of these people resided within you, that they kind of all created this sum total of who you were as a person. And rather than the way that it talks about here, where it says an account of the genealogy, that's the translation, the actual Greek for the Gospel of Matthew starts out by saying this is the book of the Genesis of Jesus, the Messiah. Western Protestantism, basically from Martin Luther, but even more from, I would say from the 1650s to 1700s on, have tended to focus theology and God's understanding of dealing with people and salvation as working on individuals. This whole concept of individualism that then spreads into religion, so you are really concerned whether you are saved, or with a person, are they saved? That's really a fairly new understanding of things. And even within the way the Gospel of Matthew starts out, it really opens up a whole broad perspective, because this is not just Jesus as an individual, but Jesus as this like genetic community of everything leading up to who he was and is. And that God will be acting to, that's why they use the word Genesis, I think, that this is kind of this understanding of a new creation. It's kind of cool to look at the rhythms of the genealogy of Jesus, the 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations from David to, that's all fun and kind of certain rhythms and balance. But one of the things I will often talk about within biblical studies is to look for the anomalies. And sometimes these are anomalies that we don't necessarily automatically recognize. The big anomaly within this genealogy is the 4 women. 4 women. Why are they put in there? Why are they set aside or highlighted, even not just set aside but highlighted within this genealogy, where you have hundreds of women, 14, they all have wives, but it's these four that are set apart. You see, Jesus is the sum total, and his ministry in many ways is declared by some of the people that you'll find in his genealogy. The list begins prestigiously enough with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, but then very quickly it begins to shake and quiver a bit, and you have Ruth, a foreigner, an unwelcome one, an undocumented immigrant, a woman who is from a neighboring tribe, Moab, somebody who was constantly being, and there was this constant push within Judaism to say each according to their own kind. And yet there would be that principle of each according to their own kind, and yet all the way through the Bible they kept breaking that. And I think God keeps breaking that, because the each according to their own kind tends to be kind of exclusive and weird, and also then tends to get kind of violent against the people who are not like us. And so God keeps reminding us that there are people on the outside that are to be brought in. Ruth marries Boaz, and Boaz, as you see from the genealogy, is actually the son of Rahab, another foreigner, a Canaanite, and not just a foreigner, but Boaz, his mother, Rahab, pretty clearly was a prostitute. That's the women who lived by the gate, was this kind of euphemism for a prostitute. And she helps the Israelites to conquer the city of, oh my gosh, I've gone blank. Anyway, and the walls came tumbling down. Anyway, to be able to conquer as they moved into the promised land. So she becomes absorbed into their culture, but she is still a foreigner. And I'm sorry if this offends our modern sensibilities, and the Bible should probably have a warning on it. But if you cut out the parts just because they make us uncomfortable, or because we might think that that is like, oh dear, that's inappropriate for us to be looking at, then I'm sorry, but the Bible just becomes fluff, sweet fluff, and it's not real. There's a woman by the name of Tamar who's there. What's she doing there? She had actually solicited sex with her father-in-law. I mean, that's how Perez, her son, was conceived. Tamar, who's a woman of unidentified origin, but she probably too was a Canaanite, and she'd been widowed by two of Judah's sons. But even though the beginning of the story makes it sound like, or just the surface of the story makes it sound like Tamar is really kind of unsavory, the reality is very, very different. Tamar was stuck in a really hard place because she had been returned to her father's house to wait, but in that waiting, her life is really on the edge and at risk, so she takes matters into her own hands. Judah, her father-in-law, is not willing to fulfill what is needed to kind of keep the family promise, to let the family continue on. And so she tricks him into sleeping with her, and then she becomes pregnant. Now, Judah's first reaction is, Mr. High and Mighty, Mr. Righteous. And as it turns around, ultimately he gets totally incriminated. The story completely turns on him because, sure enough, he readily propositions a prostitute, little dreaming that she is actually his daughter-in-law. And then when Tamar is found out to be pregnant, this incredible double standard where he actually condemns her, threatens to have her burned to death because of her inequity, but she has been smarter than that and has kept certain items of his from their little interlude and is able to prove that he was the one that was the father. And actually, what she was doing was to simply hold the family to their covenant. And Judah realizes with some surprise and declares, she is more righteous than me. She is more righteous than me. Tamar, moving on all the way through this genealogy. So you've had Ruth and Rahab and Tamar, and then not even named. How sad is that? But you have the wife not of David, but the wife of Uriah, who then has been with David. And so once again, you have some of these glitches in the story, these moments in the story that really are rather a mess. And then David and the wife of Uriah have a son by the name of Solomon. Generations roll on and continue until you get to Jesus. And then the fifth woman in the story, in the genealogy, which is Mary. Think about why these women were there and what they do to our understanding of who Jesus was and is. They were ordinary people, extraordinary mostly in their being outside the boundaries of what was proper, tarnished to some degree, unlikely to shape the course of history. And yet they are in Jesus' genealogy. I think they're there to give us hope, to foreshadow the kind of people that Jesus came to embrace, the people who society and the norms were pushing to the edge, the people that even our own society would deem as unsavory or inappropriate or whoa, can you believe? And that those are the people that Jesus has a real soft spot for. They're not perfect. We are not called to be perfect. We have got to get over that. We are called to be real and to embrace and to reach out to real people. Happy Christmas. Christmas too. And yet this is who Jesus is. Amen. Amen.